Okay. This is gonna sound crazy, ladies and gentlemen, alright? But hey, we all thought the king portrait idea was crazy too, and look how awesome that ended up. Actually, I don't think anybody called it crazy. You want a portrait of king? You're a madman, Tekking! It's like, no, it was overwhelming positive response from that. But here's my idea, okay? Since that worked so well, I propose an anime figurine, but a figurine unlike any other figurine. I say that we should build a anime figurine of Zunesha. To scale, ladies and gentlemen, to scale. That's right. It's going to require a lot of hard work, but we could do it. I know we can. A 35-kilometer tall anime figurine to end all figurines, okay? Because I don't have anything to put next to Barry in this video, all right? This is a video about Zunesha, and I don't have any elephant thing. It's odd because I did elephant facts for so long. You'd think I'd have an elephant, plushie or something, but no, I guess... Pens! Okay, there we go. Pens and a pair of scissors. That's the sidekick for today's video. Alright, so, this was something that actually the last chapter ended on the cliffhanger. Cliffhangers in One Piece are a little strange. Sometimes they're, like, super epic. I wonder what the cliffhanger's gonna be right before they find the One Piece. Like, they go to Laugh Tale and there's, like, a giant door or something. Zoro ends up finding it by accident, and he opens the door, and then the last scene of the chapter is just the Straw Hat's reaction looking into the room, and it's like 3-week break. But next time we find out the One Piece, right? So cliffhangers like that are really epic, and then other ones, like the one in the last chapter, it was just kind of like... it was really honestly stuff we already knew about. It was Momonosuke pulling Onigashima away after Big Mom had fallen into the hole and everything. Yamato poked her head out and she was like, hey, is everything still okay out here? The whole island's sort of falling apart, but I think the explosives are maintained. They're frozen. They should be good. And Momonosuke's like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, Zunisha's here. And it's like, the giant elephant? Like, yeah, the one that was Joyboy's nakama over 800 years ago that committed a horrible crime. And that was the end of the chapter. And I haven't really talked about it very much because it's like, we already knew all that information. There was nothing new in that statement. We knew that Zunesha was, an ally of Joyboy. At least we could assume. I don't know if that's ever been directly stated, but we could assume that. I mean, it was pretty obvious considering the fact that Joyboy, had something to do with the Will of D and also the founding of the Poneglyphs, the creation of the Poneglyphs, and, fighting against the world government. So that was pretty clear that there was something connected there between the Minks and Zunesha and Joyboy and the Kozuki clan as well, so we can infer that. I guess that was just Oda confirming it right there. But then the whole thing about, like, him, Zunesha doing some sort of crime during the Void Century, and that's the reason why it's cursed to walk, or like its punishment, its penance, is to walk the seas until it, is finally forgiven for its crimes, I guess. We already knew all that, so I was just like, not really much to go off of there, but I'll talk about it anyway. Plus, we had a lot of long videos this week. It was kind of a busy week. We had the movie 6 video and then the Fisher Tiger video. That was an hour long. I filmed some videos yesterday for when I go on vacation next week. One of those is an hour long. So, there's something a little bit more easier to do, I guess. And then the review will be out tomorrow, obviously. Okay, so let's talk about this. The idea that Zunesha was Joyboy's nakama. About 1,000 years ago, it was stated that's how old the elephant was, but it's also said that I think the minks lived on Zou for about that amount of time. So it's the idea that, like, Zunesha was probably a lot smaller back then during Joyboy's time, but still big enough to support life on its back. Now, at this point right now in the story, Zunesha is 35 kilometers tall, and I think it's like 20 kilometers, like, long or something. It's like ridiculous measurements, right? And so the idea is you could fit an entire country on its back. Like, literally, you have multiple towns on Zou and, like, cities, and then a forest, and the whale tree, and, like, everything in this nation, all right? It is a legitimate country, okay? Now, back then, during Joyboy's time, Zunesha might have been only big enough to support maybe a large village on its back or something like that. I don't think there was ever a situation where it was like with Nola, the snake that Nola Ireland and Kagura met. You know, I don't think it was a situation where Zunesha was this tiny little elephant, like the size of a baby elephant right now, and then, you know, grew to the size of Zunesha. The species is so massive that when, you know, one of these elephants gives birth to another elephant, it's still probably big enough than, like, it's taller than most structures that humans could build, I would assume, right? Already, okay? So I like to think that back during the Void Century, at least, there was a village on the back, maybe not even just a village, but like a large-sized town where the minks called home, okay? And maybe it was a situation where there were a lot more of these types of elephants wandering the world, and Zunesha right now is the only one. But back in the day, before the world government took over, there were a bunch of these elephants, and on the back of every elephant, there was like a different tribe of minks or something, right? And then they all got wiped out, and the only minks to survive were the ones on the back of Zunesha. Could be a situation like that. But then you also got to consider that on the back of Zunesha is the whale forest, the whale tree, where the road poneglyph is, with that giant sigil of the Kozuki clan. All right, so the Kozukis were also involved in this as well, plus Joyboy, who was the progenitor, at least we can assume, of the clan of D. So I'm just going to throw this out there. What if Zunesha 800-something years ago, during the Void Century, during Joyboy's battle with the world government and the beginning of the Clan of D, that was their home base. That was their home base of operations. And back then, Zunesha was not punished to walk the seas. And back then, maybe Zunesha could talk to anyone that would listen. Maybe it might have been the situation that Zunesha could only communicate with certain individuals, such as Joyboy, who would have the ability to hear the voice of all things. But maybe it would have been a very different situation back then, where maybe all of the minks could hear Zunesha and understand Zunesha and commune with it in some capacity, right? And then something changed after the crime was committed and that punishment was dealt. Who gave Zunesha the punishment? That's the thing also. Like, it'd be very odd if it was like the world government that, like, after the world government took over everything and defeated Joyboy, then the world government, like, punished Zunesha, like, you shall walk the seas. It's like, why would Zunesha listen to the world government, the enemy, right? Unless there was something going on there where Zunesha had to obey any order given to it. There's also the idea that Im-sama might have some sort of devil fruit or just some absurdly powerful conqueror's hockey that would allow Im to, like, take away the free will of other creatures. You know, so, like, basically Im was the one that gave out the order. Im was at the head of the world government even back then, and then was like, you know, I order Zunesha the elephant to wander the seas, and with its great conqueror's hockey, like, it had no resistance to it. It just had to do what it said until the time passes that it was finally allowed to, you know, stop, right? Joyboy's crew, if even you want to say they were a pirate crew back then, because, you know, pirates probably maybe existed. You know, it's possible Joyboy might have been the progenitor to all the pirates as well, right? It might have been a situation where it's like, you know, pirates in our world we look at as, like, criminals that broke off from, like, the government, or, like, often, like, the Marines or the Navy to go do their own thing, like, historically. But back in the One Piece world, the origin of pirates might have been a defiance against the world government. So it's like, they're criminals, and there's certainly pirates in the present story that abide by that. Like, you know, yes, we're pirates, matey. We shall burn and pillage. That's what pirates do. But no, what if it was back in the Void Century that Joyboy just decided, like, okay, we're going to fall to the world government. We are enemies of the world government, but our kind will always continue on. There will always be a spark of freedom within the will of D, and anybody that decides to oppose the world government, those people might be called criminals to them, but they are the true bearers of peace in this world, and they shall be called pirates, right? And so maybe that's the origin in the One Piece world. Pirates, the beginnings of them were just people that sought out freedom above all else. Not treasure, not pillaging, not any of that crap, but freedom. And so throughout the generations, throughout the centuries, yeah, that does change, where you do have pirates that are just all about the treasure and the pillaging and all that stuff and the murder and all that. But at its core, like, the Straw Hat Pirates, at their core, are there for adventure and freedom. So let's say, so back in the day, it's Zunesha walking around, and you got an entire like clan of D living on its back, and then you got Joyboy there at the head of the table, and they got the Kozuki clan there. It might have been possible where that's where the poneglyphs were created. We know that it's the Kozuki clan that crafted the poneglyphs. I guess that happened in Wano, and Wano was always isolated from the world government basically as long as the Kozuki clan were in command. So it's possible that like okay, Wano might have been their base of operations. But like Joyboy was such a Chad, he didn't actually have a boat. It was a giant elephant that was his ship. I'm also imagining 1,000 years ago or 800 something years ago, Zunesha can move a lot faster than it can now. I mean, it's starting to get up there in age, getting like to its first millennium. Its hips, its knees are starting to go out. That's what I'm basically saying, right? So it might be a little bit faster back then. There's always that theory that's been around that like Zunesha or like the elephant species themselves together are one of the ancient weapons. And you know what, just from like, okay, yeah, if Zunisha's there like right now on the shore of Wano and there's all these government ships, yeah, it is a terrifying, prospect, because one swing of that thing's trunk could just wipe out an entire fleet of ships. Yeah, that is very terrifying. Like if Zunisha could just pull up one of its feet and just crush an island like a pancake, and there was an entire like group of these elephants that could all do the same thing, much like how Poseidon controls all of the Sea Kings, although I would say that if it was like one Sea King versus Zunesha, depending on the size of the Sea King, because some of them are small, but some of them can get very big, I would say the Sea King would be a lot more ferocious rather than Zunesha, because at the end of the day, it has size, but it's hampered by its advanced age, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of all the ancient weapons being like living things, but it's possible. So what if the situation was Zunesha and all of the Clan of D sort of made like a pact or something together? Or it's like, we will fight together even if we all get wiped out. Like we will carry on this will to the next generation. We will pass on this initial of D, whatever it stands for, Dawn or Dreams or whatever, to the next generation until eventually the world government can be taken down. The Tenryubito can be dethroned, right? So let's say they made this pact together. Joyboy did, all the other Clan of D members, as well as the Kozuki and Zunesha that was there as well, right? They all made this pact. They all made this agreement. And because we've seen the loyalty of the minks, I think this is where it's going to come into, because the idea that the minks are animals, they're furries, but whatever. The idea is that they have the loyalty of animals, like the loyalty of a dog that will never betray you, basically, okay? Cats, on the other hand, maybe. But no, the animals are very loyal. That's the whole idea, right? So we saw that with Raizo, where they were literally willing for their entire civilization to be wiped out, and I have a feeling a lot of minks died in the process. I mean, we've never given really an exact number on that, and the whole idea is like Caesar showed up and used the gas to like nullify the kill gas, and that like saved them all. I still feel like quite a number of minks probably died during Jack's attack. I mean, it lasted for days on end. Probably a few of them died, right? So they were willing to lay their lives down. They were willing to let this city that had existed for, 800, 900, 1,000 years to be completely annihilated. If it meant protecting Raizo, if it meant protecting a friend. So with that all being said, and the idea that Zunesha carries all of the minks on its back, yes, Zunesha itself is not a mink per se, but it's an animal still very loyal, and from all the elephant facts we went through, we understand that elephants are very altruistic and had capabilities of empathy and like has a long memory and everything like that. So what if it made this pact, and it's like, if I ever fail you, then I will punish myself for that failure. And then that's what happened. Perhaps for any number of reasons, Zunesha was not able to be there during the final battle. Like the final battle when Joyboy rose his army against the 20 kings and their ancient weapons, and everybody was like, the ancestor of the Doflamingo family was there, the ancestor of the Nefeltari family was there. Like they were all coming together for this epic battle, and for whatever reason, Zunesha couldn't be there or was held up by something, and so the battle ended with Joyboy's death and his failure, so to speak. And then it's like, oh, the world government's taking over, and now Zunesha's like, oh no, I have failed Joyboy, I have failed everyone in the clan of D. And in order to punish itself for that, it was like, I shall now walk the seas until I am forgiven. And like seeking out this forgiveness from Joyboy's reincarnation, or Joyboy's like successor, if you want to use Joyboy as rather a title more than just like an actual physical reincarnation, like the chosen one or whatever, like however you want to say it. So basically Luffy is what we're talking about here. Like if Luffy truly is the next Joyboy in whatever context you want, it's Luffy that has to be the one to say to Zunesha, like, you know, your punishment is lifted, it is okay. Or maybe the punishment will only be lifted when Luffy, as the next Joyboy, or whoever the next Joyboy is going to be, will succeed in toppling the Celestial Dragons, which was Joyboy's initial goal. So only when, like, maybe Dragon is the next Joyboy, or there's multiple Joyboys, there's more than one. I made a video about that not too long ago. But, like, eventually when the Celestial Dragons are toppled, and, like, Zunesha, with its 1,000-year-old eyes, like, gleams Luffy, or Dragon, or Momonosuke, or anyone, and just like, Joyboy, it's finally happened. Your will has finally been carried out. The will of freedom. And Zunesha acknowledges this, and it finally is like, oh, I could finally lay down. Like, the elephant just finally lays down, and just like, man, you know how hard it is to sleep while you're walking? Oh, man. And so Zunesha just lays down, and, like, the island is still... And so the island just collapses. It doesn't go under the water, because Zunesha's probably so damn tall. But, like, Zunesha finally finds a place to, like, lay down and take a nap. Rightly deserved. You know, actually, oh, man, this is really dark. But what if at the end of all this, Zunesha dies? That would be really dark. I don't think Oda's going to go along with that, considering what he did with Pell. You know, the idea of, like, I don't want to kill off Pell. That might have the end of Alabasta be a little bit too sad, and I want it to be happy. You know, they won at the end of the day, so Pell gets to live. I don't think that Oda would go ahead with that. Like, you know, but it would make sense. Like, Zunesha was only kept alive as long as it was because of that punishment and the hope that eventually Joyboy's reincarnation would appear and carry out his will. And so as soon as that will is carried out, Zunesha's like, finally, at long last, I've seen the new world that Joyboy, the dawn of the new world that Joyboy so longed for. All right, later, everybody. The entire elephant just falls over, and then they rebuild Zoe on top of its corpse. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna go with that. It's probably just gonna stop and lay down and take a nap. That's probably the better move there, right? Now, here's another question. Since Momonosuke, like, is able to commune with Zunesha, and purportedly did that while all the other Straw Hats were arriving at Wano, and while Luffy and Nami and everybody were in Totland, Momonosuke and Inuarashi decided to stay behind at Zoe, so Momonosuke could, like, communicate with Zunesha more. You know, is there some information that Zunesha has that is that it's unable to tell anyone, even Momonosuke, in this sense? Because you would feel like Momonosuke, like when he was reading Oden's logbook, he seems surprised by a lot of it, and we still don't know entirely of what's in the logbook, but, you know, it seemed like that was the first time Momonosuke was reading about stuff related to the Void Century in this context. And it's like, okay, if you were talking with Zunesha, though, couldn't you have just asked Zunesha to be like, hey, Zunesha, tell me everything you know about Joyboy? Or even if Momonosuke did not know the term Joyboy back then, it was like, Zunesha, tell me everything you know about the past. Tell me everything you know about the Kozuki clan. Tell me everything you know about the road poneglyphs. Tell me everything you know about the minks. Tell me everything you know about, like, where did you come from? Why are you walking? What you'd think at least Momonosuke, if it was communing with Zunesha, why are you walking? Why do you have to do this? What is the nature of your punishment? What did you do to warrant this? Like, you think Momonosuke would have at least asked it that much. So I feel like it's kind of silly if Momonosuke was, like, talking to Zunesha and never brought that up, but it might be a situation where Zunesha just could not speak the answer to Momonosuke. It might be like, I want to tell you, I really do, I really want to tell you, but that's part of the punishment. The punishment is not just that I will walk the seas for all eternity. The punishment is I must not reveal anything involving the lives of Joyboy until his will carries out, or something like that. Even if Momonosuke was like, but I'm a member of the Kozuki Kozuki clan. I'm an ally of the Minks, and my dad was Odin. Well, Zunesha would have never... No, Zunesha met Odin. Odin went to Zunesha at one point. Yeah, he's like, oh, yes, I remember when that Chad Kozuki Odin walked upon my back some 20 years ago. Oh, he was truly the most epic person to ever walk on top of me, right? Okay. You know, it might have been a situation like that, but Momonosuke still falls on deaf ears, or like, you know, Zunisha's like, I can't tell you, I want to, but I can't, because that's part of my punishment, something of that nature, right? And also, at the very least, that confirms right there, just because Momonosuke is a member of the Kozuki clan and can hear and understand and talk with Zunisha, despite all the other Minks being incapable of doing that, it does not mean there that Momonosuke is capable of ending the punishment. Like, his words can, like, forgive Zunisha and it can move on. Like, that's just the case there. So, yeah, like I said, we didn't really find much more additional information in the last chapter, so maybe we'll find out more as we go along. You know, Zunisha's there at Wano, you know, probably wiping out the government ships or on standby or whatever, and it can still carry out orders. So, like, when Momonosuke asked Zunisha to, like, cast Jack away, it was able to do that. If Momonosuke's like, oh, wipe out all the government ships, it could do that. It's just stuff related to the punishment itself, walking the ocean, and then information about the Void Century that Zunisha is not allowed to divulge until certain conditions are met. And we just haven't gotten to that point yet. But anyway, yeah. That was a slightly, you know, shorter video, I feel, than I've done, but it might be the same length, whatever. We can even it out, though, with frog facts, so let's get to that. So, there's still so much just general stuff about frogs that we've yet to delve into. Hit the intro, first of all.
Tekking. Frog facts. Frog facts. Frog facts. Frog facts.
So did you guys know that frogs could jump good? Yeah, I just found this out. Frogs are actually really, really good jumpers. Some of the best in the entire animal kingdom, as a matter of fact, right? And a lot of the species are actually called rocket frogs for that reason. Of course, they're named after the popular early 2000s Nickelodeon cartoon, Rocket Power, which I watched quite a bit, even though I was not into skateboarding or roller skating, or I didn't live in California or anything like that. I really loved Rocket Power. What are you going to say? There was also a cool video game that I had that was like in the style of like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. You can like play as Rocket Power characters and like jump up on the rails and get points and stuff. I remember that game. But no. Okay, that's off topic. That's Rocket Power facts. That's not until we get to letter R. But no. So their striped rocket frog can jump over 2 meters, and, you know, compared to its small size, that is over 50 times its body length. All right, and 6.5 feet, 2 meters, that's like 1.5 of me. Like, that's a lot of Tekkings there, right? So it can jump really high, really far. Now, there are frogs that are bigger that can jump even further than 2 meters. 2 meters is not like the record, but when it comes to like relative size, like a small frog jumping a really far distance is more impressive than a larger frog jumping a further distance, because it has like more powerful leg muscles and stuff. But in terms of like relative to body size and jump speed or jump length, the rocket frogs are like the kings of that, okay? There's also a species called the northern cricket frog that actually jumps so fast it can actually skip across the water like a stone. Now, I'm assuming they don't have enough power to keep that up. Like, they couldn't skip across the entire Atlantic Ocean or like Lake Michigan or whatever, but, you know, they could probably a small pond or whatever. They could just skip right across it. Like, that's pretty cool. Then there's also the Cuban tree frog, pictured here in this odd position. But no, this thing is awesome because as I was reading about it, the idea is their leg muscles propel it so damn far that it actually seems to go beyond the capabilities of what their muscles are capable of. So it's like, we've analyzed these frogs. We know the biology and like the muscle structure of these frogs and how far they should be able to jump with this power in them. And yet the Cuban tree frog is able to jump, like, break its limits and go even further than that. So it's like Saitama if Saitama was a frog, shattering its limits and becoming one-punch frog. One-punch Toad. I think that sounds cooler. That just makes me think of Toad from Super Mario. One-punch Toad. But no, the idea is it's using, like, centrifugal force, kind of like a catapult, for example. You know, so it's like the way it's propelling itself is going beyond the means of its own muscles to get even further jump length. It's just awesome. It's a very similar mechanism to how, like, grasshoppers and, like, insects will jump very far. Like, you ever see a grasshopper, like, you jump up to a grasshopper, try to catch it, and it, like, rockets away super fast, and it's like you're surprised they can move that fast and jump that far. Kind of like that, except with, you know, frogs, which are bigger, right? Well, anyway, yeah, and it's an amphibian, obviously. So, yeah, that's a couple of jumping frog facts. We got a few more, though, for you on how frogs walk around and swim and all that stuff. I'm just going down the Wikipedia article, but that's pretty much what animal facts were from day one. But anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Tomorrow will be the review, and next week I will be going on vacation. I'm leaving Wednesday. The idea is that Monday, Tuesday, I'll get regular videos out, like follow-ups to the review, and then I filmed some other stuff that will come out then, and I could still film stuff while I'm on vacation as well, so I can get some stuff out for you there. Also important to mention is that for the next chapter, after this week, next week, I will still be on vacation, so I'll probably just do the review there, like in my hotel room and without the suit and without the backdrop, but I will still get it done the day it comes out, so I guess look forward to that. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Tekking, signing out. Life-size Zunesha statue figurine. Let's make it work.